Nick, very good to see you. This
Hey,
video is for anyone who wants to retire in 2025. We have the 5 money moves that you need to make first. Retirement planning usually takes place over decades. Checking in with yourself throughout the planning process can keep you on track. But of course, you do need to give your finances a cold, hard look before you tell the boss goodbye. So let's walk through those moves. First, you need to decide when to claim Social Security. This is really important.
so you mean we don't just like not plan and then say, "Hey, boss, I'm out of here," and just burn the bridge?
I would not recommend that.
I wonder how many people have actually done that. I bet
I've
there's back.
always wanted to in my prior job.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because you need to be telling me these things in advance if this was something that was happening like right now.
No, absolutely not.
Just
I'm never retiring from this job, Nick. Not if I get
hey,
to work
you know
with you.
what? I think we have a good thing going, so you can't go anywhere,
No.
right? Can't replace you. So, but I don't even remember what your question was. I think it had
Social
something to do about
Security.
Social Security, right? It's something about Social Security. Well, when it comes to that, that's one of those biggest things. I almost find Social Security, what people will do is they think that's not really a financial decision. It's a Social Security decision. I'm just going to turn it on, or I'm going to turn it off, or I don't know when I'm going to turn it on, whatever. And it doesn't have anything to do with anything else. No, and it does. You cannot look at Social Security like it's on an island and like it doesn't exist with in the sphere of all of your other money, because it's probably one of your biggest income streams that's going to happen. And so, like you're showing here, that when you take Social Security is going to depend on the year. The longer you wait, it goes up every year, and it's a dependable income stream the longer you wait. Every year you wait, it goes up about 8%. But a lot of people, they don't think that. They just think, well, I'm 62, so I'm going to turn it on. But then you're foregoing all the potential growth that could have in the future, because there's literally hundreds of ways to claim Social Security. There's thousands of rules. And the difference in choosing one option over the other can be hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. So it's a big decision. And if you're married, you may want to stagger your income, because what happens if you're married is the surviving spouse gets to keep the higher of the two Social Securities. So let's say that you both turn on your Social Security at the same exact time. And let's say it's $2,000 for you and $2,000 for your spouse. Well, if something happens to your spouse, you lose one. And since both of you got $2,000, you get to keep $2,000. That's it. However, if you have Social Security and you staggered the other person's, so let's say one person gets $2,000, the other person gets $3,000. Well, then that's different. Now the surviving person gets gets to keep $3,000, so they get an increase. So they get to keep more of it. So you might want to look at staggering Social Security as an option. And another thing too, I'm starting to see this a lot more, Aaron. I'm seeing people that what they're doing is they're saying, well, I'm still going to work. I'm 63. I'm still going to work, and I'm going to turn on Social Security. And then they get a nice note saying, hey, you owe us some of your Social Security benefits that we paid you, because you still worked even after you started getting benefits. And so there's something called the Social Security earnings test, which basically means if you earn about $22,000 or more, for every $2 you make in Social Security benefits, you got to give $1 back. And that happens all the way up until the year that you turn full retirement age. So there's all these Social Security benefits. You want to make sure you're coaching yourself up so that you're making the right choice and not foregoing benefits and maximizing what you can get from Social Security.
Right. Next, determine whether you have adequate savings, but this sounds overwhelming. How do you know?
Well, what we do is everybody could guess. I mean, you could just say, yeah, I can retire. That's not the way to do it. What we use is we do a deep dive, what we call retirement income analysis. Now, what that is where we take all your numbers and we plug it into a system, and it tells us how long your money is going to last. What that does is it gives you, without a shadow of a doubt, an idea of when your money would run out, if it does run out at all, and how much you can spend during your retirement years while making your money last. But more importantly, what it means is that you can once and for all put the rest, how long my money is going to last. Because you'll know if it runs out at 83, if it runs out at 85, if it runs out at 95, or if it never runs out. And you can once and for all know, if I spend X amount of dollars per month out of my retirement savings, am I going to be okay? ultimately that's what people want to know.
Right.
They
Peace
want
of
to
mind.
know, am I going to be okay?
Right.
Is this going to run out? Am I going to be broke, busted, and disgusted at 95 years old or
Mhm.
not? And a retirement income analysis, that's exactly the purpose of it. Is just like an EKG, you put it on your heart to determine how you're doing. Just like doing a blood pressure test, it does the same thing, tells you how you're doing. Well, this is the financial advisor's version of an EKG.
Mhm. And then next, of course, you do need to decide on a withdrawal strategy. I think a lot of us are familiar with the 4% rule. I've
Right.
also heard you tap your buckets in this order:
Yep.
taxable, then tax deferred, then tax free. What do
Yep.
we need to keep in mind?
Well, so the 4% rule, let's go back to that. That's
Yeah.
AKA, that's also known as the broker's rule. The broker's rule was basically back in the 80s, they tried to figure out, well, when somebody retires, how much can they take out of their money and make sure it lasts? And they came up with this number, 4%. And they said, well, you could take out 4%. So if you have $100,000, you can withdraw out $4,000 per year. And through the ups and downs of the market, you should be okay. And by the time you're 90, there's a 95% chance that your money's still going to be there. And that was what they came up with, as they use this 4% rule. But there's been periods of time over history. Wall Street Journal came out in the 2008 and 2009 and said the 4% rule is bogus. It's now more like 2 to 3%. Well, why? Because we had just had a market crash. And so those rules sometimes need to be tweaked and changed depending on what's going on. Because if you retire, and let's say you go through a big catastrophic loss early in your retirement years, that might mean that that 4% rule doesn't hold true.
Right.
And you might have to take out less. So, and I also tell people too that you don't want all of your income coming from the stock market. That's what I call the play check. Get to live a good life so long as the market goes up. And if the market doesn't go up, well, I got to cut back. That's the play check. I get to live life good as long as everything is good. What I tell people is you need to create paycheck income, dependable, consistent, reliable income. So that maybe you have your Social Security and maybe you have some other income that's dependable, like a paycheck, like from work. Without working, you're taking some of your money and you're creating a stream of income that you can count on. And when you have that, that makes it a lot easier to live with than just that 4% rule that can live or die by what the market's doing. But you also mentioned something too that I think is important, which is the order of which you take your money out. And this is something I think is a big issue too, because I'm starting to see financial advisors across the country give really bad advice. They're finding people with Roth IRAs and they're saying, hey, why don't you cash that Roth IRA in, take that money and spend that first so that you don't have to pay taxes this year. Well, that might make sense this year because Roth money is tax-free. And so if you spend all of your tax-free money early, studies show that you'll run out of money earlier because taxes will likely go up in the future.
Mhm.
So what you want to do is you want to protect that tax-free money. You want that money to grow as much as possible so that when you're 75 or 80 years old, you've spent through the taxable money, you've spent through the tax deferred money. And here you are at 75 years old, maybe 80, 85 years old. And the rest of the money that you have is tax-free. So whenever you pull money out, it's not taxed. And that's a great way to live your later retirement years, is by not having to pay Uncle Sam a big bill. And by that means you're getting more income. And by that means just that's you're setting yourself up in a much better way.
Right. Well, and that money can grow tax-free indefinitely because it doesn't have required minimum distributions too.
And pass it on to your kids and your
Tax.
beneficiaries completely
Yeah.
tax-free. So there's a lot of reasons why not to raid your tax-free money first.
Yeah. I don't know who's giving other contrary advice.
Quite a lot,
crazy.
honestly.
Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation then, Nick. All right, next, schedule check-ins, review your finances before and throughout your retirement, especially in the first year or two. But how often do you think retirees are doing this? And how often do you think, how often are they surprised by what they're spending?
Well, sometimes people aren't even planning before they retire.
Yeah.
Which is the big problem. They're going in and they're saying, I'm done. I'm done. I'm 65. I'm done. And so they turn in their 2 weeks notice, but never really do the math. They just think, well, I have money in my account, so I should be fine. And when you actually do the math, they find out, oh my gosh, I'm spending a lot more than I thought. As a matter of fact, I had a lady who she was a widow of a boxer, and he left her about $300,000. And she thought, well, that $300,000 should last me for a very, very long time. But when she came to me, she said, I don't understand why, I don't have as much as I once did. And I thought that was kind of a vague question. So I started diving into things a little bit and started trying to figure out where everything was. And what I came to find out is she did have $300,000, but she was spending $10,000 a month.
Wow.
That's $120,000 a year. You can do the math, folks.
Yeah.
That's basically 3 years, and all of her retirement money is out. And she was like 64 years old, but she didn't have a handle on how much she was spending. So you got to have an idea of that. So to answer your question, a lot of people are surprised.
Yeah.
They're shocked. But just like you maintain a house, when you buy a house, you maintain that house. You don't just buy it and never do anything to it ever again. You change the air conditioning, filters, you do different things. You vacuum, I hope. You throw out your trash, that's part of maintenance, I hope. If not, there's some problems there. But you maintain a house. Well, when it comes to financial planning, you got to maintain your retirement plan. So you got to at least check in with this thing at least once a year.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call these are strategy sessions, not reviews. We call these strategy sessions. A review looks in the rear view mirror. And maybe it's important to know what happened, but that's not where your focus should be. Your focus shouldn't be reactionary. It should be proactive. So what I tell people is look at where you are right now. Maybe take a little bit of time to say, what did we do? But a strategy session should be where you're looking at the future and you're trying to figure out what can I do now so that down the road, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, I'm in a better place than I am today.
Right.
You got to adjust. You got to adapt. Mm-hmm. And so having those regular check-ins is what's key.
And last and perhaps most important, because you really only do get one chance to do this right, consult an advisor.
Yeah, well, and you can't do it by yourself forever. And you may want to, but I've had a couple times this month where I've gotten a phone call from people saying, hey, my husband's got dementia, or mm-hmm. my spouse has got dementia. And so if you did it all yourself and now you're caught with having a situation where you're dealt that hand, where you have dementia, then what? What do you do? Is that when you build a financial plan and bring on somebody to carry it forward from there? So if you didn't plan and you're trying to do it yourself, that is an uphill battle that a lot of people are faced with. And a lot of times, for a good retirement advisor, and you always want to look for a retirement advisor. Anybody can call themselves financial advisor, I found these days. I found the mortgage broker can call himself financial advisor. I've seen some people that are stock brokers who help people buy Tesla stock. That wasn't a suggestion to buy anything, folks. But I mean, they'll go out and they'll say, okay, you can buy Tesla stock or whatever, and they'll help you do the purchase. But that's not advice.
No.
Retirement is a much different animal. It's how do you get off that cliff or that mountain, and how do you help your money last as long as you do as you go through retirement? How do you do that? And so you need to have a plan and a strategy and some help to do that. A team of people, whether it's a financial advisor or a tax advisor who's helping you too, or an estate attorney who's helping you too. I had a guy come into the house, our house, and we had some issues with some things at the house, and we had a handyman come in, and his shirt said something to the regards of, we fix what you tried to fix. So kind of like a little spin on that sometimes if we don't have the experience, we try to do it ourselves because it's cheaper, and then we end up messing things up, and then we got to go to the people anyway to help us out. And they got to fix not only what was messed up before, but then what we messed up while we were trying to fix what was messed up.
Well, you live in this world. You know all of the risks. I mean, this is
Yes.
your full-time job. That's not my job, right? I'm good at what I do. So that makes sense. And as I said, you only get one chance to do it right. Yeah,
you don't want to, retirement has no do-overs. You get a chance once.
Or you go back to work.
Or you go back to work, right? I mean, I guess there is a do-over or there's an apology.
But
I'm sorry I retired. Can you take me back? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, either way, that's what we're here for. I mean, people can go to our website, group10financial.com. There's lots of resources there, access to our YouTube channels, all that. But you can also schedule a 15-minute strategy session call with us where we can really kind of learn your situation and figure out where you're at and what needs to be done. And let's strategize about your future. And let's make your future bigger, brighter, and better than where it is today. And that's what we want to focus our attention on.
Right. Whether you want to retire this year or the next or 3 months from now. Right. Yep. Nick, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Great being with you.